Welcome to How I Got Here, hosted by seasoned educator Jeremy Proper. This is a podcast of conversations with his former students discussing their journey from middle school to where they are today. Guests highlight their successes and the life lessons learned along the way. And now let's welcome the host, Jeremy Proper.
Welcome to How I Got Here with Mr. Proper. I will be talking to former students who will tell their story of their personal journey from Mr. Proper's class, aka Club 128, to where they are now. Everyone has a different path to get to where they are now, and that path may just be the beginning to where they actually want to be. In these podcasts, I hope to tap in the journeys that my former students have taken. Also, for them to share their experiences with my current students, and for that matter, anyone else who is interested in seeing how hard work in and out of the classroom actually pays off. So let's welcome my guest today, Megan Rice. Hello, Megan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
That is awesome. So, as I start these podcasts all the time, I ask that you take a few minutes to briefly introduce yourself. Please include when you left the Don, where you went to high school, then college, if there's post college, and what you're currently doing right now.
So, my name's Megan Rice. I think I left the Dawn in 2008. That seems right. I went
That's
to
always the hardest question right off the
right.
bat. When you left the Don, like,
Yeah.
it's been a while.
Math.
Yeah, really. Meanwhile, this is the engineer. Anyway.
I went to high school at Boca High. I graduated in 2012. Then I went to do my undergraduate degree at University of Florida. I studied mechanical engineering, and then I did 1 year of graduate school. So I have like half of an MBA from FAU, where I played beach volleyball for them. And
Nice.
now I work for Johnson Controls. I've been there for about 2.5 years, doing mechanical engineering for them. I work for their a sub company under them called Sensormatic, um, which does like, I guess if anyone's ever seen the tags that go on clothing to prevent you from stealing them, we make those, the readers that alarm if you steal them, and then a bunch of RFID stuff, which is kind of a newer technology that's really coming into the industry for inventory. Just so everyone knows, like, oh, this is a medium T-shirt that's tie dye or whatever, just based on the tag alone. And I also play. I will call it professional beach volleyball because it is, but there's not a lot of money in beach volleyball, so professional should be taken with a grain of salt.
That is fun. It is professional because now, as we noticed, it's on television. Because I saw
Yes.
that tournament in Hawaii, and I was like joking with you, going, "Did you go to this?" And you're like, "I'd love to, but not yet." And now that Bally Sports owns them, you were mentioning that now it's becoming, hopefully, will get more traction and become more popular. But that I think that's so amazing that you still do that. So, can you inform my students that this was something you didn't just hop into? You've been doing this for a long time, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, I played volleyball. Like I played on the middle school team at Don Estridge. I played indoor on the high school team at Boca High. Then I just growing up, it was always education first, so I didn't go anywhere, to play volleyball. Like I was fine. I was an okay indoor player. I probably could have gone somewhere, but it wasn't my priority. So I went somewhere for education, and then while I was there at UF, I played on the club indoor team, and then there were sand courts, and so I had played beach a little bit, back home because my mom plays. So it was more just for fun. And like, I honestly wasn't very good. But just playing pickup more there, I got a lot better. I started playing in tournaments when I was in college, started doing well, started playing in bigger tournaments, won like a mid level tournament, and then got to the AVP, which is the professional tour in the US. And you have to play qualifiers to get in. And I was able to qualify. And now I kind of have enough points that I'm in the main draw for those. So, whatever events they have throughout the country during the summer, I play in those.
So middle school volleyball basically turned into side hustle, interest, whatever it is that you want to call it. Because, like you said, it's not a ton of money in it, but it's just
Right.
something fun. My question while you were discussing, I was wondering, was the transition very difficult from indoor to beach? Like, was that a difficult thing, or was it like, because I don't understand volleyball. I never played. The height for me is totally pointless. I've never used it for anything other than tennis. But it was it a hard transition from indoor to beach?
I think initially, yes. And for me, it was hard because now in indoor, the positions are so specialized. So, you have a setter, they set. You have an outside who the outsides are the most versatile position. They hit, they pass, they play defense, they do serve receive, all that stuff. But I was a middle, and that's like the most specialized because basically all you do is block and hit. So you don't have as much of those, you know, whole game fundamentals of
Heavy
passing.
duty responsibilities.
Right. So it was definitely tougher in the beginning, just, getting passing reps and serve receive and stuff.
Because
But
for
I
the
don't know.
people
I
that are
feel like that was
listening
so
that
long
don't
ago at this point.
understand, sorry, for the people that are listening that don't understand, eh, you went from, I'm sorry, how many people are indoor on the court at once?
Oh, yes. So there's 6 people indoor as well, because I forget that not everyone knows, like, all about volleyball, so I just start
Exactly.
talking and,
That's
I'm
okay.
gone.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here to guide you.
Yes. So there's 6 people on an indoor court on each side, and then in beach there's only 2. So you're doing every single skill. Like you're passing, you're setting, you're playing defense, you're blocking, you're hitting, you're serving. There's nowhere to hide because there's only 2 people.
Right. So if you've ever been to the Deerfield Pier and you look to your left, you will see that there are a whole bunch, and actually more every time it seems that I go there.
Yeah, they
But
keep adding.
they do. It's like I remember when I first went to the pier, and even before I even knew you did this, it was just by happenstance because that's the ride I go on. And there, poof, wait, I know that girl. And all of a sudden, it started off, and there was like 4 or 6, and now there's like 20. It seems it's crazy. But if you go down to the Deerfield Pier, you will see all these set up beach volleyball courts, and people are playing all the time. And you don't realize, like Megan said, that you're soup to nuts. You have to do it all. You can't just be like, okay, I can do one aspect of this and go out and play beach volleyball and be proficient at it. You have to be proficient at everything because it's just 2 people in concert doing it together.
Yeah.
And you have to find, I would assume, the right partner to know what to do. And then it gets into the hand signals and all that other stuff, which I'm always like, what are they doing?
Which
Like I
it's
remember,
funny you mentioned the hand signals because my brother, who has seen me play so many times, over Thanksgiving break, he came home and he was like, "What are the hand signals?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you don't know what the hand signals are?" He's
right.
like, "Yeah, I thought it was just telling who to serve." And I'm like, "No, those are like
No.
blocking and defensive calls. So you're signaling to your partner what part of the court you're going to take."
Right. So it's not like a mystery when the ball is served, I'm going to the left, you've got to cover the right or vice
Yeah,
versa.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it took me a minute to figure that out, but wow, Ryan, not very good, buddy. Thanks. Your sister has done this for how many years? Oh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's really complicated because you literally go from one aspect where, like you said, you can just be that one person that does that one specific skill, whereas in beach volleyball, you have to know them all. So
Yeah.
that's wow, that's really interesting. And so this was just because college you were more focused on academics and volleyball just kind of went by the wayside, or
Yeah, it was more like, I wanted to go to, like, a really strong academic school, and I knew that I was gonna study engineering because, like, I always liked math and science, my parents are engineers,
it
no one is
runs in the
surprised
family.
here. Yeah, like,
And
um
her brother's an engineer as well. It's
right,
like if they
so
came out and said I wanted to be artists, they would be left at the fire station.
so yeah, it was always just big emphasis on education, and I was gonna stay in Florida because, like, money, that makes sense,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
not to pay out of
Well,
state tuition.
so let's go in that vein. So then when you were in high school, middle school prepared you how well? How did you think middle school prepared you for high school? Did you feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing, or oh my God, I'm totally clueless? Or
Yeah, I
somewhere in the
definitely
middle?
felt like I knew what I was doing, and I was actually surprised in some classes, like specifically in English. I remember that Miss Adamo did a really great job teaching us stuff that when I went to the high school English classes, I was like, "Oh, I actually know this?" It's
I
funny
say that
that
all the
that
time. I say,
specifically rings a
thank you for
bell.
saying that. Thank you so much for saying that because I say it all the time that I tell them, look, if you really are paying attention to what's going on in certain classes when you get to high school, you're going to be so much more advanced than the kids from other schools because they didn't have these teachers and they weren't taught this stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. I definitely think that the bigger transition for me was high school to college, just more in terms of like scheduling. But yeah, the transition from middle school to high school, I felt like we had such strong educators at Don Estridge. And I'm not just saying this because, like, you work there, whatever. Like this is for
Gr-
real.
Grease
Like,
that wheel. I'll
yeah,
Venmo you the money
like that
later.
it was an easy transition. I didn't feel like I was struggling in, any classes in high school coming out of Don Estridge.
So going along with that, what was the real difference between middle school and high school? And was there something that you were like, oh, I didn't realize this?
Hmm. I feel like the biggest difference I didn't feel like was in the education. I felt like it was more in like the social part of it. Because in high school, you get more independence. You usually get your driver's license. You can drive. You can kind of do your own thing. So yeah, I just felt like kind of learning about yourself and your independence happened more in high school. I felt like that was the biggest difference.
Oh, okay. Because that was actually a question when I posed it to my students. I said, is there something that you would like me to ask? And that was one of the ones that stood out a lot. Like
Huh.
these kids are on the precipice of eighth to ninth grade. So they're not quite sure what to expect because, it's the unexpected. They don't know. So they're like, can you ask these people who've already done this? Like, what was it like that transition? So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny. I definitely think that like if they're worried about education, I think or like, doing well in their classes or whatever, I think that if they're doing fine in middle school that they're going to be fine again. It's more just, figuring out what you want to take because I do think there are more options and then just like finding your friend group of people who, have common interests that you get along with and then just finding yourself basically.
So going along with that, did you find yourself going with a new friend group, or did many of your cohorts seem to follow you along to Boca High, and you were just like, "Oh, here are my friends, and we're moving forward"? Or did you feel like you kind of said, "You know what? It's a metamorphosis for Megan, and I'm going to start anew, and I'm going to try some new friends."
It definitely wasn't like a completely fresh start. Like I took a lot of friends with me, from Don Estridge to Boca High, which was helpful, of course, in the transition than just starting fresh. I also playing on the volleyball team, you kind of get like built-in friends there
For sure.
because you spend every single afternoon of fall semester with them running
Exactly.
around doing the same conditioning, griping about the same things,
This is
whatever.
horrible. I hate this.
Yeah.
Coach sucks. Yeah, exactly.
But some of the friends that I knew from Don Estridge, I wasn't as close with. Like we didn't have the same classes because I feel like so much of your friend group in middle school is just based on who's in your class.
Because you follow
Um,
them around group to group to group. I ask that every year, and many of the
yeah,
kids have 3, 4, 5 classes with the same kids because you're taking the same academic level. So
right.
therefore, it's just easier to group you. And to be honest, that's something that bothers me because there's many different groups and you don't necessarily get a chance to intermingle with others because you're constantly from 6th grade to 8th grade. If you're in a specific program, you're following those kids, and it's just easy to keep grouping them together as
Hmm.
far as, I guess, making a schedule. But that's not fair to you because you're never getting to know the other people who are still part of the same group because they're not in your classes.
Yeah, so I think that's something that's super important about doing extracurriculars is that like yeah, in high school you still have some of that in high school. I will say like if you're taking a full AP course load, like you're seeing a lot of the same faces in those classes with you. But if you're involved in extracurriculars, then you're getting to know different people. And so our friend group was kind of like a hodgepodge group of some people from my classes, some people from extracurriculars, some I met through like my brother doing Boy Scouts, and we just became friends because we were the only girls there.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, so it worked out. It was a good group.
That's awesome. So you're very, very well rounded with your education, with your athletics, academics. So is there some moment that Megan can remember when she got inspired for learning, or has that just been a lifelong process? Was that something handed down by mama and papa, or was that something that you just acquired yourself?
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of been lifelong. I don't think there was one specific moment where I was like, I love learning because of this.
Right.
Um, but I mean, I'm just thinking back and I mean, in elementary school, I remember like my parents always wanted me to do things like the right way. And I remember there was a specific math thing where it was a guess and check. And that was what was taught in the textbook. Like, that's just what
Hmm.
it was. You guess this number, you do the equation, you see if it works out, and then if it's wrong you guess a different number and they're like
Just try
what
again.
yeah, they're like why would you waste your time
Right.
guessing all these different numbers and doing it? This is the systems of equations. We're going to teach this to you. This is algebra. Like you do
Wait,
it
wait.
this
How
way
old? How
because
old
this
were
is the
you when
right
this
way.
happened?
You're only going to get one answer.
How old were you
So
when this happened? Do you remember?
what? Sorry.
Sorry, how old were you when this happened?
I think it was 3rd or 4th grade.
Oh
So
my God.
what
Third
is
or
that
fourth
like?
grade, your parents are like, no, this isn't how this works. And you're like, I'm 8. Like, I don't understand what you're talking about.
The first time they tried to teach me, that was the reaction. I was like, "No comprendo. I don't get it. Like, please just let me guess." But then I think they did it again the next year and it kind of stuck. And I remember the teacher
Wow.
called on.
Imagine what 1 year makes. Wow.
Yeah, it is funny.
What a
Like,
difference.
yeah. The teacher was like asked the class, is there anyone that wants to come, show us the problem? And I raised my hand because I was like, yeah, I know how to do it. Like, go
Right.
up to the board, do the whole systems of equations of algebra. And the teacher's like, yeah, like that's right, but that's
But yeah, how
no
do you
one
know
else has
that?
been
You're
taught
like
this.
9. You
Yeah,
shouldn't know this yet. Like, what do your parents do for a living?
right.
Because you don't need me anymore.
Uh,
That is hilarious. Oh my God. But look at you, this self-confident young lady getting up there and like, I'm going to do this whole math problem in front of this whole class who's watching me and I got it right. And the teacher's like, hello? How did you do that? That's
yeah,
so
like this
funny.
is great, but like I didn't teach anyone else how to do this, so they're not gonna understand.
Nice. So, was there a moment where all of a sudden, like that, you decided yourself on your path, where like it wasn't so much, well, my mom's an engineer, my dad's an engineer. I guess I should do that too. Like, was there a moment where you were like, I actually like math. I'm actually good at it, and this is the path I want to take.
Yeah, I think that again, I don't think there's like one specific moment, but like just in all my classes, like I always just enjoyed math and science. Like history and English were just like they were fine subjects to me, but I
Oh,
just
the
didn't
spear to the heart. They were fine. Oh.
like
This
I just
interview is now over.
delete
Yeah,
what is it?
yes.
Hit the big red button.
The big red button. Finish recording.
But yeah, to me, math and science just always piqued my interest more.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wish it's like math for me was always this arduous task that took forever. It's not that I couldn't do it. It's just it took so long. It's like anything. If it takes you a long time to do anything, you just don't like it. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it is. I mean, I'm sure like even Picasso had paintings where he was like, "Oh, I had to work all these months and look at this piece of garbage." And everyone's like, "What are you talking about? This is amazing." But to you it's your own internalization of how you see things, and I just was like, oh, this is too much. Like I like they don't even teach it anymore. It's algebra trig, which is pre-calc now, but
hmm
that's what it was. And I was like, do I need more math to be a history teacher? They were like, no. I'm like, I'm done, check please, I'm out. Like, why am I doing more math than I need to? This is too much work. But I envy all those people who are the math people and can do it, because everyone has their hidden talents, and the same thing with you and your volleyball. Like I said, I'll never forget that day. I was just riding along and I stopped down on the little, what is that?
The boardwalk
Yeah,
thing,
that's it. The boardwalk. I was going to say the runway, the
the
boardwalk.
runway.
And I'm just looking around and I'm like, I think I know that person. I really do. I really think I know. And then you finally saw me and you were like, and I'm wearing that big floppy
Yeah, you
hat.
had the Don Estridge shirt you had too.
Oh, that's right. And Johnny saw it because he was like, wait, didn't you go to middle school there?
Yes, yes.
That was it. And I was like, oh my God, it's Megan. And it just blew my mind because I did remember that you played volleyball in middle school and high school, but I had no idea the transition because, again, social media was just starting to become a thing, and you
Yeah.
lose contact with people even though you live right here in Boca, and it was just so crazy. And then I never knew anyone who played beach volleyball to begin with, so it was just so intriguing. And then even more so, here's a female athlete and I was like, this is blowing my mind. And it was just so interesting to me to see how something that became a interest became more than that, and it became a love, and it became something that you do. It's like, I guess, again, today you would call it like a side hustle, but
Yeah.
going to all these tournaments, and then you opened my eyes because I didn't know what it was, and it was so interesting to see what you had made of it. That it, to me, is so tremendous. If you could turn back time and tell your 8th grade self some advice, what would you tell 8th grade Megan?
Hmm. I feel like this kind of goes hand in hand with the quote that we were discussing, but it's just
Yes.
kind of like do your thing, like do what you want to do, forget what anyone else, wants for you or thinks that you should do, because like, yeah, like my parents, like they do expect me to like go have a career path or whatever, but like even going back to your last question of like, was there a moment where you knew what you wanted to do? I think like even through college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I was taking all these classes and I enjoyed them. Like I liked the classes, but I was like, do I want to do this for 40 years? Like I don't know the answer. And
No one does until you actually do it. That's the
right,
problem.
right. And so it's frustrating. Like, you go through all this school and you are still unsure. And like, I actually applied to optometry school when I graduated because I was like,
Wow.
oh, you can make your own schedule. Like, it's more flexible than like traditional engineering jobs. Maybe this is what I want to do. It's still like a science. It's a little
But
bit
that's
less.
what's interesting. You took one path, and then, like Bugs Bunny said, I made a left turn at Albuquerque because you had done such a highly specialized math thing. It basically opened up the door for other things if you chose to go in that direction versus the direction originally chosen. That's
Yeah.
what I really see is coming across. That
Yeah. It's funny because most people who try to pursue like a health uh higher level education like doctorate or PA, doctor, optometrist, physical therapist, something like that, they usually specialize in uh what's it called, anatomy and kinesiology
right.
or something like that, like a pre-med course. But since I did
Exactly. Right.
engineering, I actually, because I had a lot of credit from high school, I had a lot of flexibility in my schedule to take some electives that I wanted, so I was able to take anatomy, biochem, orgo, some of these other sciences
Really
that like,
enjoy your science. Yes.
yeah, like I like science. So like it still was like a fit for me. And I wound up getting into optometry school, but then
What?
deciding
That's
like,
amazing. I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah. So, but then I was like, again, do you want to do this? And this was like a bigger question because it was like, you have to take out $200,000 in
Yes.
loans to do this.
More
And I was
money,
like,
more time. Oh God. Yeah.
right. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm like, I can just revisit this if I really hate engineering, is basically what I came down to. Because I was like, whatever, I got in once. Like, I know how to study. I can do it again.
Wow. Well, I want to go back for a second. So your high school preparation enabled you to do that. So do you remember how many AP classes that you took in high school?
Yeah, it was a lot.
In the
um,
20s?
I think it was probably in the 20s.
Wow.
I took like one or two my freshman year. And they had ACE as well,
Right.
which didn't always translate. So I took some ACE, some not. But like I took AP Calc 1 and 2, which translated so I could go directly to Calc 3.
Wow.
Physics, I could go to Physics 2, I think. Um, yeah, there were some others. Like I didn't have to take an English because I had taken AP English and history. Yeah, so I was able to get enough credits for the most part that I only had to take a couple of electives my freshman year, and
Wow.
then I
So
could
taking
choose.
taking all these high school AP and ACE classes really helped to precipitate what direction you were going and gave you latitude to take other things because you didn't have to fill your plate with things you've already taken.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times engineering is a 5-year degree, or you have to take summer classes
Right.
at some point. But again, because I had so much credit, I was able to do it in 4 and still take some of these other classes that I wanted to.
I wish somebody would have mentioned these things to me when I was in high school, that taking more stuff in high school makes college easier. You
Yeah.
just you don't, but I'm hearing this from so many of the interviews, and that the interviewees are saying how, oh, well, because of this, it made this so much easier, or it made my, like you're saying, my path so much clearer. But then here you are, just, I hate to say it this way, but for fun, taking these high level
Yeah.
science classes because you enjoyed it. It wasn't like you had to, you just wanted to because you liked it. So finding that early on niche of what you enjoy, and it made it easier for you ultimately when you got to college. That's a very important point. I'm glad you hit on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything you just said is definitely true. Um, but yeah,
So
so I don't know.
with
Go
all
ahead.
well, no, that's okay. With all of these hardcore classes, is there a most challenging educational experience that you had to overcome? And how were you able to do it And did it actually make you a better student because of it? Was there a positive outcome? It doesn't necessarily mean there is, but was there something that like just was a real roadblock in your educational learning and then it helped you to propel yourself in a different direction, the same direction, better direction?
Yeah, I think there's more like a road speed bump, like not a full block, but like going into the first year of college where you're on your own and you live in the dorms and you have your classes, and it's not like you go to class from 8 to 3 and then you go home. Like your class is at 9 to 10, then 2 to 3. You only have it 3 times a week. Like you're not seeing the material every day. A lot of the college professors, I mean, my learning style for sure is the professor writes it on the chalkboard, like, because a lot of what I did was math and science, so he's like writing a problem on the chalkboard, dictating it as he writes it, and I'm copying it into my notes. Like that is how I learn the best, and I think that it took some figuring out the first year of college to kind of get there and figure out how I could retain some of the material, because a lot of those professors don't have that style. So it's like self accountability to go to class at these weird times, different times of the day. No one's making you go. You can cut if you want. Like there's no
Right.
attendance for most of
You're
these.
paying for it. If you don't want to go, no one cares. I've
Right.
said that 1,000 times.
Right. And then like doing the homework, it's just like, again, your parents aren't making you. No one's making you. Like your grade will reflect it and you're paying for it, but
For sure.
still. And then just like figuring out your learning style and that how to kind of get through a class if it's not taught in the learning style that suits you best.
That's where I think the disconnect happens. I've been pushing the learning styles on my students just this year, where actually right before break, I made them take a learning style questionnaire. It was like 30 questions. And I said, okay, what is the learning style that you found? And go look up one of the new techniques for studying, because a lot of people don't realize what learning style they are and if they're studying correct for that learning style. So
Yeah.
you could be totally auditory and have to say your notes into your iPhone and have it repeat it to you over and over. And all you're doing is writing down notes. It's not helping you. You're actually being more counterproductive and destructive than helpful.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you saying that as well. That's another wonderful point, that learning style, like the old adage, it's better to work smarter than it is to work harder. I tell them that I didn't learn that until graduate school. When I was in graduate school, I was like, oh my God, I've been studying wrong my whole life. And I wound up cutting my studying time in half and my grades went through the roof. And I'm like, this is not the way this is supposed to work, or at least the way I was explained it. And I'm like, I want these kids now to understand it, because hopefully that can propel them much sooner and going, oh my gosh, I studied half as much as I did for the last test and I got a much better grade.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's super important. And that was difficult for me the first year because some classes weren't taught in that style, like I was saying. And so, like I was a straight A student. And so going in and like, not acing tests and, not doing as well on
Dum
some
dum
tests.
dum.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's the Grim Reaper again going, hey, Megan, how you doing? And you're
Right.
like,
And
oh,
then just
man,
like,
no, this isn't my life. I'm the A
yeah.
student.
Yeah, and so getting a bunch of B's and stuff in classes and stuff. Like again, I graduated with like a 3.5. So like I was an AB student. Like the
Right,
classes
right.
were difficult,
Right,
but
but
definitely
prior to that moment, you were straight A student
right.
4.0, and now all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't. But again, that's what people don't understand. The professor or teacher is not going to adjust to your learning style.
Yep.
You have to adjust to their teaching style. It's
Yeah.
completely different.
And
And the
taking advantage of office hours is also huge, which is something that I
huge.
didn't do my freshman year because again, like the classes were also big because
Yep,
they were more generic classes the first year. So
yep.
it was like you go to office hours, there's so many people there. You just leave because you're like, I'm never gonna get my question answered.
I remember doing that the first time and thinking to myself, this is the greatest thing in the world. My professor actually knows my name,
Yeah.
knows my face, is annoyed when I show up because they know that I have a question. But whenever I had a question, I always got it answered. Whenever I had a problem, it always got fixed. Whereas my friends would complain, and I'm going, go talk to the professor. They're actually pretty cool. I don't have time for that, or I have this to do. And I'm like, you're going to suffer. And I can't tell you how many times I was able to kind of work things to my advantage, because I would go sit, wait for my turn, like you said, and talk to the professor. And Or my friends would get really mad when here we are, like you said, in these 100 level classes and there's 400 people in the class and the professor's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, Jeremy, how you doing?" And then they're like, "How does the professor know who you are?" I'm like, I went to their office like 42 times last week. That's why. And it makes a difference because you're making a connection, you're making a difference, and it shows the professor that you care. And even if your question is ridiculous, it doesn't matter. You're taking your time to go there on their time, and it does make a difference. All those little things matter. So again, learning styles, taking the time to get to know your professors so they can ultimately get to know you. Yeah, it's obviously to help yourself, but it's a positive thing. It's very helpful. Wow, those are some really great tips.
Yeah, and I think what you said about getting to know your professor can also really open doors for you down the line because like maybe they have a project that they need a research student for and they offer it to you. Maybe you're interested.
Exactly.
So I think that yeah, like going to class, doing the homework, like going to office hours, like yeah, it's more time, but it's ultimately worth it in the end and I think that's kind of the challenge like of the first year of college that I faced and then from there I kind of figured it out and it was a smoother ride.
Yeah, it's a blank roadmap that you're trying to fill in yourself and figure out how it works. It's funny, your last comment, it reminded me I was trying to get into a class that was closed. And here's another thing that the students don't understand.
Oh
They're like,
yeah.
closed class? What are you talking about? Well, when it fills up, you can't get in. Well, I had a professor that I was really tight with, and I went up to him and I was like, "Hey man, I need this class to graduate. It's only offered in the fall. And if I don't get in it, I can't graduate on time. Can you please talk to the professor? I know you're friends with them." Not a problem. The next day, the professor's like, "Come to my office, I'll sign your card." Because of those relationships that are being made, it makes a difference. You have to know how to play the game. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what game you're playing. It could be Monopoly or it could be life, which is still a game. But real life, you have to have relationships with people and you have to understand that they're going to help you if it's a positive relationship. And it helped me. And I was able to get into this class and graduate on time. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done.
It's funny, I actually just remembered so this one class specifically, it was mechanics of materials and there were 2 classes offered and I didn't look at either of the professors, like, I just signed up for the one with the time slot that fit my schedule the best,
Right.
and this professor, I mean, she was new, she wasn't I mean, maybe she was great for some people, but she wasn't great for me, um, and the other class but we had a quiz every day, so, like, I had to go to that class.
Right.
But the other mechanics of materials class was taught, I think this class was at like 11 a.m., but the other one was taught at 2 something.
Oh,
And
nice.
I didn't have a class at that time. So I was registered for the 11 a.m. Like I couldn't leave and unregister and join the other class. But what I did is I went to 2 lectures every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday for that specific class
Wow.
because I actually learned in the second one, but I took the quiz in the first one.
That's incredible. So you're like double dipping. And so no one ever caught on to the fact that you weren't even registered in the class?
No, because
It
it
did
was like it was a junior level
auditorium?
class, but it was still like 50 to 100 people.
Oh my gosh. So you just, oh my, that's amazing. I don't think I've never heard that before. I don't think there are many people, Megan, that would literally take the same class twice just so they could understand them. And not to mention, you could have hired a tutor. You could have done all these other things. You're like, well, there's a 2 o'clock. Why don't I just go to that?
Yeah,
Oh
and I
my
think I
God.
had a class like right before or after, so I was already on campus. It wasn't like a big deal for me to come back or go home or something. So yeah, that's funny. I just remembered that.
So that extra effort thing also pays off. You're just a cornucopia of information. This is incredible. Like honestly, I've never heard anyone do that before. That is incredible. But that's the mark of a successful person. That's somebody who wants to succeed and not blame their failures or their ineptitude on someone else. You're like, okay, this might not be for me. I screwed up and picked the wrong person because I didn't look. I just took the class because they don't understand that you have a choice when you're picking your schedule. It's not so much like, here you go, these are your classes this year. No, in college, you get to choose it. You get to choose the professor,
Yep.
the time, the day of the week. Should it be Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Should it be Tuesday, Thursday? Should it be my favorite, the night class, which was 3 hours once a
Oh
week?
God, those are awful.
I love them, to be perfectly honest, because
Really?
the professor didn't want to be there either. So it was only like 2.5 hours. So it never was 3 hours.
I
And
think I was just always hungry during those.
yeah, that's the problem because they were like 5 to 8 or 6 to 9.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of people didn't like them. And the other reason is, like you said, if you're that kid that needs the constant 3 days a week of getting the information, getting that download of 3 hours of information once a week, and then, like you said, having a quiz the next week on it, it's a lot. But it gives you more free time. You have more time to go over the material, but it all depends on what you like.
Yeah.
Everyone's different, and that's the learning experience of college. So,
Mhm.
you get to figure it out. So, was with these classes you were taking, was there some challenging educational experience that you had said what you said something about it was more of a speed bump than a roadblock? What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I guess it was just kind of like the entire first year of just like finding that accountability and finding out that learning style. And then just like we talked about, making the extra effort to make sure that you're understanding the material. So it's not like I was failing these classes, but
Right,
I wasn't doing as well, or I wasn't understanding the material as well. And like, you know, when you see a test, if you know the material or not,
for sure.
like, like you can't guess in math classes because you have to
No,
show your work. So even if
no.
you guess five, and first of all, like there weren't really a lot of numbers. It was more
Eh,
like you'd end up with an X equation. So
Right,
it wasn't like
right,
you could just choose a number.
right, right,
Like you
right.
still had to show your work to get there. So I guess that's kind of the speed bump, was like figuring out where I needed to make the time for the extra effort
Hmm.
to get the better grades and to understand the material.
And had you been prepared for this from your high school experience, or that's why it was the learning experience because it was a transition to a new, like a new adaptation of learning?
Yeah, I think honestly, I wasn't that prepared from high school for that
Hmm,
specifically, like just like accountability for your classes and figuring out, when your professor's office hours are, what you're not understanding, because like you see the teacher every single day in high school. You have to be there for this allotted amount of time. Um, like you can ask questions in class. It's a lot smaller classes. So it was a definitely a different experience.
for sure. Yeah, it's a learning experience, and then the difference of you went to middle school and then followed a lot of the same kids to high school, and then you go to college. I'm sorry, but UF is what now? How many people go there? It's like 40, 50,000
Yeah,
kids.
it's something like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So even if there were Don Estridge or Boca High kids in this mammoth of a university, you're never going to see them because they're
And
taking different classes, they're on the
yes,
different side of campus, or they live off
yep.
campus. It just goes on and on. Right. That's the separation because middle school, you're taking the same classes as these kids. High school, similarly, the same
Mhm.
classes as these kids. But once you choose a major in college, those are the people that then become kind of your new friends because you're seeing them in all of your math classes, all of your engineering classes, and you're seeing them on a day in, daily basis. So things change and it shifts from these are the people I was with because of they were in these classes and now these are the new people. So it
Yeah.
is a transitional period. So with all of these ridiculous classes and hard amount of education that you placed upon yourself, what was downtime for Megan? What was the all right, I need to relax, I need to me time, I need to push this all to the side for a sec. What did you wind up doing when you were
Y-
in college? How did you relax?
Yeah, so I think for me, exercise is like a big outlet for me, and I think it always has been because I played a lot of sports growing up. Like I played soccer, I played basketball, I played volleyball. I ran track for a little while actually in middle school.
I remember you were like Jane of all trades. You did every if there was a sport, you tried it.
Yeah. So I think because I grew up like that, and it was always after school or something like that, or on the weekend, like for me, after a day of classes, I would always try to do some sort of exercise, then dinner, and then homework. So it would kind of like break up the day, and give me like an outlet where you're moving your body, like it's good for you, endorphins, like
Oh
that
yeah.
there is science behind that.
For sure, for sure. And it's somewhat regimented as well because
Right.
here okay, I have exercise, I have dinner, I have homework, I have bed, and then rinse repeat. And you kept doing that over and over again. Yeah, I agree with you, but I never looked at it that way until people were answering this question that way. I was the same way. I've always loved, as you know, I ride a bike all the way to Deerfield and even further, which is like my whole I have an app and it tells me it's like 18 miles round trip and I just have always loved to ride a bicycle. And I was actually talking to my brother about this one time. And I think that the like you had mentioned when you're in high school, you get your driver's license. Well, pre driver's license is you get that bicycle and your parents are just
Yep.
kind of like, okay, just don't get run over and dinner's at
Yes.
6 o'clock, just come home. And it was that first taste of freedom. And I've always loved the bicycle because I'm the one that makes it go as fast or as slow as I want it to go. I'm the one who takes it on the route that I want to go on. And that was that freeing thing. And I never looked at it in the eloquent way that you had just posed it, that exercise has always been a huge part of my life. I played soccer as a kid. I played baseball. I played tennis. I played sports, but I didn't realize how much it overlaps into your adulthood and how much it helps you to unwind and let go of the stress. And, I'm not thinking about how, I screwed something up at work today or got into a fight or whatever with a colleague or whatever happens, you can just be freeing for that. So that's awesome. And that's something that we can carry on. It's like, I remember one time we were playing golf, a bunch of us from the Don, and we were playing over here at Red Reef, and there was only three of us. And we got paired up with this guy who was like Father Time. I mean, he was so old, it was ridiculous. And we're all making our jokes and laughing. And we get on the first tee. Granted, this guy didn't hit it a country mile, but he hit it like you could have measured this with a ruler. He hit it so straight. I was like, this dude's like 900 years old. How did he do that? And every single time, bing, straight. He was par or birdie every time. And it's amazing. And you just think like the more time you put into things, the better you're going to get. And we all find these things in life. And again, with the volleyball, I was always like when I remember coming home just with this huge smile on my face, thinking, wow, here's this woman who has always been into sports and has found this thing that just drives her. And it's like, okay, this is my job, but this is my personal life and my personal fun. And it just, I was always so impressed by that it was something that I remember you playing sports in middle school. I remember you playing volleyball. And it was like, I just had this smile on my face, like, wow, she's still doing it. And now when you told me that it was a professional league, because I was so ignorant, I didn't know what it was. I was like, what? Like you're talking to me like I know what I'm talking about. And I do this to people. I'm sorry. I just agree. Like I know what I'm talking about.
I do
Meanwhile, I
too,
went
though. It's like you feel bad because you feel like you should know, but
right,
you
right. I
don't.
didn't want to, here we just had made this connection. I hadn't seen you in so many years. And I was just like, and I was overwhelmed and amazed by it all. And, I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And then I went home and I did a little research because that's me. I love to do research. And I was like, oh, okay, now I understand. But it was just so nice to see that you have this even balance between work life and social life and, the things that you enjoy to do. And I was so overly impressed by it that you have this amazing career in engineering, but yet you still do this sport on the side and how it's a professional league and it's not just like, oh yeah, I just go down to Deerfield and play volleyball on the weekends.
Yeah.
It's like I
That too.
get
That
yeah
too.
that too, but I've also seen you, you still put in the work, just like you did for school. I see you practicing there, and
Hmm.
it's just so amazing that you turned an interest into some. I mean, what would you how would you word it? What would you say? I mean, you do it. How would you categorize it into
Yeah,
words?
it was just like such an organic kind of reaction, I guess, like or like chain of events that happened. Like I was just playing, oh, it's fun. Oh, let's play a tournament. Oh, did kind of well. And then like you just keep getting better and you just kind of unlock more potential as you go up a level and then you kind of find yourself where you are and you're like, oh, I don't know, it just kind of happened. Like
Yeah, and I think the organic word is perfect because it when I know a lot of people do and a lot of people don't believe in the sentence, when it's meant to be, it's just easy. I understand some things have to be hard and that's life, but the quintessential things that make us who we are, the things that we're interested in, when it just comes easy to us, we're just like, oh, this is great. I'm just going to keep doing it. But other people are like, I want to do it no matter what, whether it's hard, whether it's easy. But the things that we excel at, they come to us very easily. And athletics was always that for you. But you were, on the other hand, willing to try different things and say, oh, well, there are these sports. There's this. There's not just, it wasn't like you were that volleyball is it. And I'm going to do volleyball
yeah.
until volleyball is my whatever profession or my side hustle, or however you want
Yeah,
to
and I'm
say it.
actually really glad that I didn't play in college like on scholarship for the first 4 years because I think that I would have been burned out. Like a lot of girls now, they go to college, they play. I mean, it is like full time that you're in the gym, you're watching film, you're practicing, like you have to recover, you have to get enough sleep, but then you have to be up for 6 a.m. weights again, like, and
And
then you
don't
have to fit in.
forget, you got to go to
Yeah,
school. There it is. I'm
right.
sorry, I
School
interrupted.
also, like, what? And so, like, for me, I think that, and like I was saying, like a lot of girls now, they leave college and they're just like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right. It's too much. And you actually went, okay, I'm going to put this toy down for a little while because
Yeah.
I have to focus on my education. And then you picked it up again, but now in a different way. And now you're
Hmm.
doing it on Megan's terms, not on a
Right.
coach's terms, not on a schedule. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. And it just happened to turn out that now there's a professional league. Did that exist when you were in college and high school, or did that more metamorphosis happen
So
at that
that's
time?
been around for a long time, since I think the 80s.
Oh,
It
wow.
was really big in the 80s and 90s, and then they went bankrupt in the 2000s. So like when I was in middle school and high school, it it was kind of, it was fizzled. Like there wasn't much
Defunct.
there.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, someone else bought it, I think from bankruptcy or something. I don't know the exact story. They bought the tour, and then they kind of started to rebuild. And then when I was in college, some tournaments were popping up a bit more. There was a little more money, and it's still definitely growing.
Hmm.
I think Bally's buying it is huge for the
Huge.
sport.
Yes, they have lots
Um,
of money in deep
yes,
pockets.
yes, please allow betting on
Yes,
beach
exactly.
volleyball. Like that is how you generate money for that
Exactly.
sport.
So I guess in essence, it was the right place at the right time because this sounds like it would have been something for my height itself if I was interested in it at the time that I
Yeah,
could have done it through high school and college. And then once adulting times happened, it fizzled out. But for you, it was the opposite. It didn't exist and then it came back. So you were at literally the right place at the right time. Wow.
yeah, I definitely think that is it. It wasn't the perfect time, but it was the right time.
Nothing's the perfect time. That's just
Yes.
the way life is. So, as far as Don Estridge, is there something that you learned about Don Estridge as a school after you left the hallowed halls of Don Estridge?
I do think that kind of what I touched on earlier was that the quality of education there is real. Like it is good education. You're gonna take things, if you pay attention, with you that are gonna make your high school life easier, which is gonna make your college life easier. Like there are good educators there. You're you're privileged to be receiving that education in middle school when a lot of middle schools aren't up to that standard.
And I'm hitting on the pay attention part. That's all I heard because that
Yeah.
is that is an overwhelming statement that you just kind of glossed over and hid underneath everything else because the paying attention is so important, but in middle school it's all about, making friends and how do I look to those friends and social life and the paying attention in school kind of becomes tertiary almost like third or fourth
Mhm.
and by being able to pay attention and being able to be prepared, then that's helping you to prepare for what's next. And then that helps you to prepare for what's next. And that's a very important thing. I think the paying attention, that's a huge thing. And I'm glad you brought that up. That
Yeah,
means,
and that, to me, that's intrinsic. Like it's that saying, like you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Like
right,
you can give that, like the student, all the best
tools. Yeah,
education in their learning style, all this stuff, but like if they don't want to accept it, then they're not going to learn anything. But I do think that's an intrinsic motivation, from whenever in your life, that like you want to learn, you want to improve,
sure,
something like that.
sure. Is there something that high school, when you were in high school, that you all of a sudden went, oh my gosh, I actually did learn that in the Don, but I never thought of it that way. Was there like some kind of moment where high school showed you something that the Don did teach you, but you never really equated it to the Don? And you went, wow,
The clickers.
oh yeah,
As the
CPS.
the clickers as the funny answer, I guess, because those never went away. Even in college, they had clickers.
Wow, that's funny. So you can always give that chuckle like, oh yeah, I started that in middle school and we went all the way through college with that.
Yeah, but I do think, like, kind of in the same way as the clickers, just like the technology that was incorporated into a lot of the classrooms. Like I remember there were smart boards, like the books were online. There was a bunch of different ways that tech was incorporated, and that was really the way that all of education was moving at that time. But Don Estridge was definitely one of the first. What is it when like the business first starts, like first to market almost.
Right, 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 right.
Um,
Yes. We were
early
we were
adopter.
early
That's
adopter.
yes.
We were the flagship, as you would say,
Yes.
of that technology because no other school in the county had all of this technology. Over time, all the other schools got it, but like you said, we were first adopters. We were the first ones to try, and there were many things that failed. Like, were the coded keys still working for my door when you were there? Like, I could take my ID badge and scan it on the door, and the door would unlock. Did it still
Oh,
work?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure at that point, because if it was 2008, it was only 3 years later, so it still did work. But they don't work anymore because
Hmm.
that company A is defunct, so we can't get new ones. They also in the science classes, I don't know if you remember, were trying to do attendance with like a hand scanner, but that fell to the wayside. So companies would come to the Don and say, "Hey, we have this new technology. Would you be interested in being our tester for us for our product?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure, free technology. Why not?" Some of the things worked and some of the things didn't. The clickers were definitely something, as you know, which worked well and continued on throughout. And that was definitely it. And I'm sure the you seeing all this new technology really went, wow, look at where education's going. And then you just kept riding that wave all the way out.
Yep.
For sure. That's really cool. So as I always end this podcast, I ask the same question because all the people that I interview so far to this point have all gone to the Don. So, speaking of the Don, do you remember who Don Estridge was?
So I actually didn't look this up because I wanted you to tell me if I was right or wrong.
Nice. Good for you.
But I think that he was an engineer who worked for IBM and worked on the computer when they were working on it in that time in Boca. Um,
And where in Boca?
at Donna at the school. Well, okay, so actually, is that right? First of all,
That is correct. Ding,
okay,
ding, ding. Hold on.
nice.
Wait. Where is it?
Yes,
You
clap.
get the clap.
um, funny side note is my mom actually worked for IBM in Boca, and she actually worked in an office in Don Estridge.
No way.
Like one of the classrooms was like where her office
Office
was.
was. Oh, yes, because that's what I usually say when I have to give the gong when the kids can't remember, which I think it's hilarious. So the school is named after Don Estridge, the father of the personal computer, which was invented at the actual location of Don Estridge Middle School. And he worked there. And unfortunately, he died in a plane crash in the 80s going to a conference.
Oh wow.
And yeah, him and his wife, they were on a private plane and it crashed, unfortunately. And so when the school was becoming a school and they found out all of the history, they decided, well, why don't we name it after this guy? I love to ask people like yourself, engineers. My best friend from high school is an engineer and he had no idea. And I love to mess with him and be like, you wouldn't have a job without this guy. Because they're all like, I remember learning about him in college, but I can't remember what he did. I'm like, he invented the computer. So the personal computer. So it's a wonderful question because in the very beginning, they don't do it as much as they used to, but a lot of kids your age and a little older are like, oh yeah, we had to do a project about Don Estridge in order to learn that and blah blah blah. So some people remember it, some people don't. But I just think it's really funny because that's who it's named after and it was invented there. And then you have your story of your mom actually working there, which is
Yeah.
incredible. Because a lot of people like your mom who've lived in Boca their whole life, they have no idea that that building ever existed because it used to be all foliage in front. And
Hmm.
people would ask me, when did they build that new school? I'm like, I don't know, 30 years ago? They're like,
Right.
I've lived in Boca my whole life. I'm like, it was behind all the trees. And they're like, oh, I thought it was just like a park or something. No one knew that it was there. It was hidden on purpose. And then all of like the area that I live in were houses that were built for people like your parents who were working for IBM and needed a place to live. So that's amazing that you did know that, and I'm glad you didn't look it up because it's nice to know because
Yeah,
honesty is a
I didn't realize he invented the PC. I just thought he was like working on it, when it
yeah.
was. That's
No,
cool.
he gets credit for being the father of the personal computer. Like computers existed, but they were like the size of, the science room. But
Right.
then he actually gets credit for inventing the first personal computer. And we actually have his personal computer, not the first one, but the gesture that was done by the family when they found out that the school was going to be named after their relative. They
Oh.
actually, the survivors, the children, they said, well, we have his personal computer. Would you like it? And it's on display in the front office at Don Estridge.
How big is that thing?
It's not. It's the size of a, well, I'm used to it because I grew up with those computers. So you
Okay.
didn't. So it's like a monitor and a keyboard and a CPU underneath.
Okay, because I'm thinking like even though it's a personal computer, it's still
No,
a
it's
brick.
not that big. No, no, it's not that big. I mean, it's not the size of what we have today with flat screens. It's still a CRT monitor, that thick, big, tube television monitor. And it's more along the size of what you would think of a personal computer rather than, what you saw in like Lost in Space or one of those 60s or 70s movies where they're like, oh, personal computer, and it takes up the size of a room.
Right.
No,
It's
no,
like
no.
half their spaceship.
Exactly. It's like, oh, without this, we're all gonna die. No, it's a lap. It sits on a regular desk. I mean, it's not a laptop, so it's a regular computer. But yeah, no, that's funny. I'm glad that you were able to remember that. So, as always, thank you so much for coming on and telling your story. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that'll listen to this and go, wow, I can totally relate to that. And I know that just like teaching with these podcasts, you are helping in your own special way to make a difference in children's lives and their choices in the future. And just the fact that you were sitting in one of those desks in that same room, getting that same education and moving forward to where you are now, I know that you're going to make a huge difference. And on behalf of myself, basically, the How I Got Here podcast, I was going to say all of us here at How I Got Here, where it's all me. But thank you so much because your story is so interesting and there's so many different zigs and zags. And, even though you're heavily into education, you did find your way with athletics and sports. And here you are still doing it, which is amazing and a testament to your drive and your will to succeed. And thank you so much for telling your story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.
I appreciate it. Well, you have a wonderful day and thank you so much.
Thanks. You too.